How you doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal, and today we're going to talk about a video game that's based on a cartoon, that's based on a series of films, that was based on a book. And we're going to talk about a thing based on Ian Fleming's James Bond, Agent 007. Now, there was a spin-off novel that kind of tied to the original books and the first couple of films, called Agent 003 and a half, which followed a young kid that was actually related to James Bond. This was a thing, but it didn't really pick up any traction. Fast forward to the 80s, and this thing gets out about a cartoon being in the works called James Bond vs. Spectre that was going to be released in 1988, or was in production in 88. That didn't quite work out. The series never aired, and so it sat again until 1991, when we got James Bond Jr., which was a 65 episode animated series that ran from September of 1991 to March of 1992. We got 65 episodes out of it. It was a toy commercial cartoon. And because it was a toy commercial cartoon, it spawned action figures and video games. And today we're going to talk about the NES port of James Bond Jr. Now, in James Bond Jr., the titular character, James Bond Jr., who was apparently the nephew of Agent 007, which makes no sense, but, because of family trees and all that, but, never mind. He is set on a series of missions to thwart the agents of Scum, who were his regular foils, or who he had to foil in pretty much every episode of the animated series. In this game, though, everything ties back to Scum kidnapping a bunch of the world's greatest scientists. And so you go on a series of missions that involve you defeating agents of Scum and sabotaging any weapons of mass destruction that they happen to have on hand. Level layouts are huge and just these big mazes. They're difficult. Enemies take a lot of damage. But graphically and sonically, it feels like a longer, more difficult version of Journey to Silius, which should be a bit of a compliment. This NES title is pretty solid. There is some puzzle stuff in there where James Bond, for instance, in the first mission, you move around this huge cavernous complex to defuse basically a series of nuclear missiles. And that's cool. The puzzle that they used was like this sliding puzzle that I guess is cool. I'm not a big fan of like that particular type of puzzle in a game, but that's neither here nor there. It works for what it is. This game is it's long. It's pretty long for this type of game by NES standards. And I mean, if you want a game that's going to take some time to beat, so you're going to get your money's worth out of it, this is definitely right up your alley. Because That's what it is. It's a good action platformer with some puzzle elements that will take you a while to beat. Now, do I wish they had a proper map function in here? Yeah, because there's not really one in here. So you can get lost pretty easily. But yeah, the game is solid. It's a lot better than the Super NES version of this game. I played the Super Nintendo version first. Super Nintendo version is awful by comparison. But all that aside, let's say you want to get a copy of James Bond Jr. Average price is about $45 for a loose cart. You might be able to find a couple copies cheaper, but it's not necessarily the cheapest game, but it is worth your time. It's a solid game with solid gameplay, really good music, and pretty good graphics. But it's definitely, if you're into that kind of game, you want something with some exploration and some action, James Bond Jr. might be up your alley. But at $45, it might be a hard sell for you. I don't know. This has been the 8-Bit Animal. I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow. Tomorrow. Okay, so what you're telling me is the Space Invaders people made a better Breakout game than Breakout. And they also gave us a really cool controller to play it with. Okay, I'll bite.